The world watched in awe as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin took their historic steps on the moon. But what most people didn't know was that these American heroes were also members of a secret society, the Freemasons. Armstrong and Aldrin were just two of many astronauts who were affiliated with this centuries-old organization, and their connection with the group sparked curiosity and speculation from the public. What did it mean to be a Freemason, and how did it impact their experiences as astronauts? In this documentary, we'll explore the fascinating intersection of Freemasonry and space exploration, from the early days of the space race to the present. We'll delve into the fraternity's rituals, symbols, and beliefs, and examine how they intersected with the challenges and triumphs of space exploration. We'll meet astronauts like Edgar Mitchell, who founded the Institute of Noetic Sciences after his Apollo 14 mission, which he credits with sparking his interest in the mysteries of the universe beyond the physical world. We'll also hear about Gordon Cooper, who reportedly carried a Masonic flag to space with him during his Mercury mission, and John Glenn, who was initiated into the fraternity at the Concord Lodge No. 688 in Ohio. Masonic symbolism, including the compass and square, can be seen in the design of spacecraft and spacesuits. Some Freemasons believe that the fraternity has a special connection to the cosmos. We'll explore these theories and examine how Freemasonry has influenced how we approach space exploration and our understanding of the universe. Take a journey to the moon and beyond, exploring the hidden connections between Freemasonry and space exploration. Join us as we uncover the secrets of this fascinating fraternity and its impact on our understanding of the final frontier.
There's undoubtedly a prestige element involved in being the first on the moon, but I think the real significant thing about the Apollo program, our lunar landing program, is that it serves as a focusing point for a vast scientific and technological effort that would never have been mounted and conducted with this kind of determination had it not been for a firm target in space and time.
Dr. Werner von Braun, a German-born rocket scientist who had previously worked on the V-2 missile program in Germany, was appointed as the director of the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, which was responsible for developing the Saturn V rocket, the primary launch vehicle for the Apollo missions. While von Braun oversaw much of the technical development of the Apollo program, it was ultimately managed by a team of NASA officials and engineers, including George Muller, who served as the Associate Administrator for Manned Spaceflight, and Christopher Kraft, who served as the Director of Flight Operations. To say Dr. Werner von Braun's part was checked would be quite an understatement. After his death, information was revealed to the public about his membership in the SS and Nazi Party. Von Braun surrendered to Allied forces and was brought to the United States. In the war's closing days, von Braun and several of his colleagues surrendered to the Allies and were eventually brought to the United States as part of Operation Paperclip. This program recruited Nazi scientists and engineers to work for the US government. At least 1,600 Germans were brought to the United States under Operation Paperclip, and many of them went on to work for the Army and later for NASA.
Over and over and over during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, people, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens, and all of it, he said, is a lie. A lie. I think I was too naive to know at that time the seriousness of the nature of the spin that was being put on the system. And now, the pieces are starting to fall into place. We're building a space-based weapon system based on a premise that is a spin. And Werner von Braun was trying to hint that to me back in the early 70s and right up until the moment when he died in 1977. What he told me is that there's an accelerated effort in place. He didn't mention a timeline, but he said that it was going to be speeding up faster than anybody could possibly imagine. That the effort to put weapons in space was not only based on a lie, but would accelerate past the point of people even understanding it until it was already up there and too late.
While there is no direct evidence we could find of von Braun's potential membership in Freemason groups while growing up in Germany, it is worth noting that the Nazi Party banned Freemasons in Germany and in all territories occupied by the German military during World War II. So membership in the fraternity at the time would have good reason to be kept a secret. It is known that one of Braun's close associates, whom he worked with for many years and became an integral part of the Apollo program, Kenneth Kleinknecht, was a Freemason. Kenneth Kleinknecht worked for the United States Army Ballistic Missile Agency under the direction of Werner von Braun in the early years of the American space program. Kleinknecht worked on the development of the Redstone and Jupiter missiles. These early missiles were crucial to the development of America's space program. They laid the groundwork for Saturn rockets that would eventually take humans to the moon. Later, Kleinknecht served as the deputy director of the Manned Spacecraft Center in Houston, Texas, responsible for managing the Apollo program. According to the Los Angeles Harbor Lodge, illustrious Kenneth S. Kleinknecht was a 33rd degree Master Mason. The 33rd degree is an honorary degree conferred upon Scottish Rite Masons who have demonstrated exceptional service and commitment to the Masonic fraternity, as well as to their communities and society at large. It is the highest degree that can be earned in the Scottish Rite, a Masonic organization that is one of the appendant bodies of Freemasonry. The 33rd degree is conferred on a limited number of members each year by the Supreme Council of the Scottish Rite. Even more intriguing, according to the Harbour Lodge, was Kleinknecht's brother Fred Kleinknecht was not only a fellow 33rd degree Mason, but also the long-time sovereign Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite, Southern Jurisdiction. Kenneth Kleinknecht was a Fairview Lodge No. 699 member in Fairview, Ohio, and the Pasadena, California Scottish Rite bodies. He once penned articles on the space program for the New Age magazine, as the Scottish Rite Journal was formerly known. In one of these articles, he examines Masonry in the space program, writing, "Note how many of the astronauts themselves are brother Masons: Edwin E. Aldrin Jr., L. Gordon Cooper Jr., John F. Iserly, Walter M. Shearer, Thomas B. Stafford, Edgar D. Mitchell, and Paul J. White."
We can visit other people with their habitation. We can keep track. If there's something very important to be developed from the moon, I'm not sure what it is right now. And I sure think we should identify what it is for America to make such gross expenditures again for human habitation on the moon. We can help. We can join with. Together, we can explore the moon and develop the moon. We should go boldly where man has not gone before. Fly by the comets, visit asteroids, visit the moon of Mars. There's a monolith there, a very unusual structure on this little potato-shaped object that goes around Mars once in 7 hours. When people find out about that, they're going to say, who put that there? Who put that there? Well, the universe put it there. If you choose, God put it there.
According to an official Scottish Rite website, Brother Edwin Eugene Buzz Aldrin Jr. was an active Mason and a Clear Lake Lodge Number member. He was born on January the 20th, 1930, in Glen Ridge, New Jersey. He attended the United States Military Academy at West Point, graduating third in his class in 1951. Brother Aldrin later received a PhD in astronautics from MIT in 1963. He served in the Korean War and is credited with 2 enemy fighter kills during his tour. Brother Aldrin was initiated into Freemasonry at Oak Park Lodge, number 864, in Alabama, and raised at Lawrence N. Greenleaf Lodge, number 169, in Colorado. He is also a York Rite and Arabia Shrine Temple of Houston member. He is also a Montclair Lodge number 144 member in Montclair, New Jersey, and the Arabia Shrine Temple in Houston, Texas. According to the Committee on Masonic Education, when Aldrin made his trip to the moon, he took a special deputation from the Grand Master of Texas. Buzz Aldrin was authorized to open a representation of the Grand Lodge of the Moon to establish Masonic territorial jurisdiction on the moon and for the Grand Lodge of Texas. When this meeting occurred, the Grand Master of Texas asked Buzz if he would carry something to the moon for the Masons of Texas. Buzz was delighted to do so, saying nothing would please him more, but it would have to be very light and very small. During the deputation, the Grand Master of Texas was quoted as saying, "Whereas I can't be a member of the Apollo 2 lunar landing flight, and whereas the lunar landing will be accomplished shortly now, therefore, to the end and the rules and regulations of said Grand Lodge may be complied with, the ancient customs of the craft in such manner observed, by the power and authority in me vested, and imposed complete confidence in the skill and ability of Colonel of the United States Air Force, Edwin Eugene Aldrin Jr., NASA astronaut, and member of our Clear Lake Lodge number 1417, I do hereby constitute and appoint him my special deputy, granting unto him full power in the premise and purpose of territorial jurisdiction for the most worshipful Grand Lodge of Texas, ancient and free and accepted Masons on the moon, and direct that he shall make due return of his acts hereunto, as required by the laws of said Grand Lodge." Aldrin did carry the flag with him on his space journey, embroidered with the words Supreme Council, 33rd degree, Southern Jurisdiction, USA. After his mission on September the 16th, 1969, Brother Aldrin visited the House of the Temple in Washington, D.C., and presented the flag to Grand Commander Luther Smith. The flag is now located in the House of the Temple's archives. Some argue this flag was a replica of the one he would have left on the moon.
I'm Joshua Poole, Museum Curator here at the Scottish Rite House of the Temple in Washington, D.C. Today it is my pleasure to be able to speak to you about the Scottish Rite flag that went to the moon in 1969. Knowing that Buzz Aldrin would be taking part in the Apollo 11 mission, the Supreme Council thought it would be nice if he could take something Masonic with him to infinity and beyond, because he was going where no man, or Mason for that matter, had ever gone before. See what I did there? The Supreme Council felt that a flag that represented the Supreme Council and Freemasonry in general would do the job. So the flag was hand-sewn by Inga Baum, who was the librarian of the Supreme Council in 1969. The flag itself is white silk. It is edged by a band of gold and embroidered with the words, the Supreme Council, 33rd degree, Southern Jurisdiction, USA, the Southern Jurisdiction motto, Deus me umque jus, the double-headed eagle, the crown of the 33rd degree, the insignia of the Grand Commander, and the insignia of a Master Mason. After the Apollo 11 mission on September 16, 1969, Buzz Aldrin visited the House of the Temple in Washington, D.C. and presented the flag to Grand Commander Luther Smith. Since then, the flag has remained in the custody of the House of the Temple's Archives and Museum Department.
Throughout his life, Aldrin maintained close relationships with many other Masons, including fellow astronauts and members of the aerospace community. Notably, he was a close friend and colleague of Gordon Cooper, another astronaut who was also a member of the Masonic Brotherhood. Leroy Gordon Cooper was the youngest of the 7 original astronauts in Project Mercury. Cooper learned to fly as a child, and after service in the United States Marine Corps during World War II, he was commissioned into the United States Air Force in 1949. After serving as a fighter pilot, he qualified as a test pilot in 1956 and was selected as an astronaut in 1959. Cooper piloted the longest and last Mercury spaceflight in 1963, Mercury Atlas 9. During that 34-hour mission, he became the first American to spend an entire day in space, the first to sleep in space, and the last American to launch on an entirely solo orbital mission. Cooper followed up this flight by commanding the 2-person Gemini 5 mission. During the Gemini 5 flight, Cooper, just like Buzz Aldrin 6 years before, carried a Masonic flag in his possessions during the mission. He was a Master Mason and Carbondale Lodge No. 82 member in Carbondale, Colorado. The Scottish Rite Masonic body gave him the honorary 33rd degree. He was also a member of the York Rite Masons, Shriners, and the Royal Order of Jesters. After serving as backup commander of the Apollo 10 mission, Cooper was superseded by Alan Shepard and retired from NASA and the Air Force with the rank of colonel in 1970.
But there is another side to Cooper's lifetime in aviation, one that for years he would only discuss with close friends, until now. It involves his personal encounters with UFOs. For him, it began in 1951 while flying in Europe for the U.S. Air Force. There, Cooper and other pilots witnessed an incident that has never been officially explained. A vast armada of UFOs flying in formation at extremely high altitudes. Recently, Yolanda Gaskin spoke with Gordon Cooper. In this exclusive interview, Colonel Cooper spoke for the first time on television about his encounters with UFOs.
I've read about this incident you had in 1951, and you said you saw literally hundreds of unidentifiable flying objects.
Yes, they were flying quite high. How high, we couldn't tell because we couldn't get anywhere near their altitude. But they were either very large craft way up or smaller craft still well above what we could get to.
For a day and a half, all of this happened. But then no one wanted to talk about it.
Well, we sent a report forward on it, and the answer that finally came back months later was they were probably high-flying seed pods, which didn't sound very logical.
There are always a lot of excuses. There's always weather balloons. I've heard that one before.
Oh, yeah.
In 1951, you couldn't even get close to the things that were flying overhead. You or anyone else that was flying.
They were faster, higher.
6 years later, Cooper again encountered a UFO. This one definitely was not a weather balloon. While supervising flight testing in Edwards Air Force Base, his military camera crew actually filmed an unidentified saucer-shaped object landing near the site.
As they were sitting there filming, a little saucer came from, I say little saucer, it was a saucer, came flying over their heads, put down 3 little landing gear and landed right out on the dry lake bed. And they picked up their cameras and started over toward it, filming as they went. And when they got in fairly close to it, it lifted up, put the gear back in the wheel wells, tipped up, and took off at a great rate of speed. And so they came into my office and told me what had happened, and I sent them over to develop the film, and then had to go through all the proper regulations of reporting this, and we wound up having to send the film forward to Washington in the base jet airplane, and I don't know whether anyone's ever seen it since.
Now, the vehicle that you just described, how similar was it to the very first sighting that you had back in 1951?
Quite similar. It was basically the same plan-form vehicle. They were double saucer, lenticular. But if you're going to be going in and out of atmospheres like Earth or other places might have, you certainly need a little more aerodynamic type of vehicle. And the saucer has the capability of going through the air at tremendous rates of speed and handling the bow and trailing wave without making shock waves. So it can be very silent while traveling at big rates of speed through the atmosphere.
Edgar D. Mitchell was an American astronaut and test pilot who became a renowned astronaut. He famously flew on NASA's Apollo 14 mission in 1971 and became the 6th man to walk on the moon. Edgar D. Ed Mitchell was a Freemason and member of Artesia Lodge No. 29 in Artesia, New Mexico. During the Apollo 14 mission, Mitchell and his fellow crew members, Alan Shepard and Stuart Rooser, landed on the moon's Fra Mauro highlands. Mitchell conducted 2 moonwalks during the mission, totaling over 9 hours on the lunar surface. Mitchell shared in the Presidential Medal of Freedom, awarded for his efforts when he typed 80 lines of code to save the Apollo 14 mission as it descended to the moon in 1971. Amazingly, Mitchell also claimed that top military officials had hidden evidence of UFOs, potentially alien spacecraft, and that they were particularly fond of hovering over White Sands testing range in New Mexico. Mitchell publicly expressed his opinions that he was 90% sure that many of the thousands of unidentified flying objects, or UFOs, recorded since the 1940s belonged to visitors from other planets. Dateline NBC interviewed Mitchell on April the 19th, 1996, during which he discussed meetings with officials from 3 countries who claimed to have had personal encounters with extraterrestrials. He offered his opinion that the evidence for such alien contact was very strong and classified by governments, who were covering up visitations and the existence of alien beings in places such as Roswell, New Mexico. He further claimed that UFOs had provided sonic engineering secrets that were helpful to the US government. Mitchell's 1996 book, The Way of the Explorer, discusses his journey into mysticism and space. In 2004, he told the St. Petersburg Times that a cabal of insiders in the US government were studying recovered alien bodies, and that this group had stopped briefing US presidents after John F. Kennedy. He said, "We all know that UFOs are real. Now the question is where they come from."
Thank you so much for coming to meet us.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Really appreciate
Good to see you
it.
again, James.
Really good to see you too, Dr. Mitchell.
I have a quick question right out the gate. You can explain some of the stronger evidence to support the fact that UFOs are real.
Okay. Being in the military and an aviator for many years, I knew that pilots all over the world, military pilots, airline pilots, and encounter them all the time. Because I grew up in Roswell, I know most of the predominant investigators in the UFO field because of those Roswell connections. And so I have no doubts about it now.
Did your opinion change of UFOs before you went up?
I had no thoughts about it then, no knowledge of it, except for the fact that I knew of the Roswell incident because I lived there at the time.
What we're hearing is kind of some sort of UFO observation of perhaps our space program and NASA, launches. Is that something that you're aware of as well?
Yeah. I would not be surprised if we are under surveillance by alien visitors. I think they're interested in everything that we're doing.
What do you think, these visitors are doing here around us and around, these launch sites?
I think just observing our progress. They're looking to see what is taking place on this planet.
On July the 23rd, 2008, Edgar Mitchell was interviewed on Kerrang! Radio by Nick Margerison. Mitchell claimed the Roswell crash was real and that aliens have contacted humans several times, but that governments have hidden the truth for 60 years, stating, "I happen to have been privileged enough to be in on the fact that we've been visited on this planet, and the UFO phenomenon is real." In an interview with Fox News on July the 25th, 2008, Mitchell clarified that his comments did not involve NASA, but quoted unnamed sources since deceased at Roswell, who confided to him that the Roswell incident did involve an alien craft. Mitchell also claims to have subsequently received confirmation from an unnamed intelligence officer at the Pentagon. In 2015, Mitchell said in an interview with the Daily Mirror that extraterrestrials had been attempting to keep us from going to war with Russia and help create peace on Earth. He also said White Sands was a testing ground for atomic weapons, and that's what the extraterrestrials were interested in. They wanted to know about our military capabilities. Besides his UFO claims, Mitchell was also active in the Order of Demole, or Demole International, part of the Masonic fraternity, and was inducted into its Hall of Fame. Clark C. McClelland was also a Freemason and member of Lodge Number 301 in Florida. He began working for NASA at the Kennedy Space Center. He worked on a variety of projects, including the Space Shuttle program. He was involved in numerous launches and missions throughout his career, including the first orbital flight of the Space Shuttle Columbia in 1981. McClelland claimed to have worked for NASA for 34 years. Still, his claims about his specific roles and accomplishments at the agency have been controversial and disputed by some in the scientific and aerospace communities. This is likely due to other claims he has made related to aliens. According to McClelland, he has witnessed first-hand encounters between human astronauts aboard the International Space Station and extraterrestrial beings, providing possible support for long-standing claims of such rendezvous. He is on a video claiming to have witnessed an 8 to 9 foot tall entity inside one of the space shuttles. He also claims to have seen a UFO near one of the space pods. While his assertions may seem wild, the UFO community has rallied behind these statements as some of the best evidence of extraterrestrial life. His reports suggest that NASA may be actively concealing information, eerily similar accusations to that made by Edgar D. Mitchell. McClelland also claimed the US government had stripped him of his pension and forced him to live on Social Security, despite insisting he has served on over 800 NASA missions.
Hello, fellow human beings on a wonderful planet we call Earth. I am Clark C. McClelland, former SCO, spacecraft operator, at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida and Cape Canaveral. I was there from 1958 to 1992, a lot of years. While I was there, and I'm still counting the missions, I have witnessed and I have helped launch 881 missions so far. I may hold the record for that as an individual from those two bases. While I was at the Kennedy Space Center, I was the unit director for the National Investigations Committee of Aerial Phenomena in Washington, D.C. Major Donald Kehoe was my director, he assigned me to that position at the Cape and at KSC. I interviewed and talked with many astronauts about their UFO experiences and alien contacts. I have written about 54 chapters in a book that the government and other governments on Earth will not publish. I have tried for 21 years now to publish my books. I have those books. There's 6 chapters now, and I'm going to enter a very important chapter 7 very soon. You have some evil in the government. We have to replace it. We have to get a government of, for, and by the people again. When I was there, on one of my mission assignments, I observed an 8 to 9 foot tall entity. I will not call it an alien because I can't prove that. But 8 to 9 foot tall anything inside the space shuttle that was built for only people 6 foot or under is something to question. I did see an alien craft hovering behind the space shuttle ohms pods. That's the area of their main engines in the rear. I love my planet. I love our human race. I'm trying to serve all of you, if only you will let me. Thank you very much. Clark C. McClellan, SCO, the Space Shuttle Fleet, Kennedy Space Center, Florida. I'll talk with you again.
Virgil I. Gus Grissom, the American astronaut who flew on both the Mercury and Gemini missions, was a Freemason. In 1956, he was initiated as an entered apprentice in Mitchell Lodge No. 228 in Mitchell, Indiana. He later passed to the degree of Fellowcraft that same year and was years later raised to the degree of Master Mason. Grissom remained an active member of the Mitchell Lodge and was known for his dedication to the Masonic principles of brotherhood, charity, and truth. He also joined several other Masonic organizations, including the Scottish Rite, the York Rite, and the Shrine. Despite his busy schedule as an astronaut, Grissom remained active in the Masonic fraternity throughout his career. He even established a Masonic lodge at the Kennedy Space Center, where he worked as a senior astronaut in the Apollo program. The Masonic Lodge at the Kennedy Space Center is called the Tranquility Lodge No. 2000. The lodge was named after the lunar module used during the Apollo 11 mission.
This television transmission has now been running about 42 minutes. Spacecraft now about 176,000 miles from Earth.
Virgil I. Gus Grissom was awarded several Masonic honors and distinctions, including the Knight Commander Court of Honor, or KCCH for short, in recognition of his service and dedication to the Masonic fraternity in the Scottish Rite and the York Rite Order of High Priesthood.
19 years and 1 day before the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded, native son Virgil Gus Grissom died along with fellow astronauts Edward White and Roger Chaffee. They died on the launch pad when their Apollo 1 capsule suddenly burst into flame.
Thomas B. Stafford was also a 33rd degree Mason. He was a Western Star Lodge No. 138 member in Weatherford, Oklahoma. In 1975, Stafford served as the commander of the Apollo-Soyuz test project flight, the first joint US-Soviet space mission. He became the first brigadier general to fly in space. Stafford flew in the Gemini missions before serving as the commander of the lunar orbiting Apollo 8. Stafford believed that color video would help the public understand the space effort better and helped to create a miniaturized color television camera system used on Apollo 8 through to Apollo 14. Stafford has been recognized with numerous honors and awards for his contributions to the space program and his service to his country, including the Congressional Space Medal of Honor and the Air Force Distinguished Service Medal. Another Freemason, Don F. Isley, was a United States Air Force officer, test pilot, and later a NASA astronaut. He occupied the command module pilot seat during the flight of Apollo 7 in 1968. This was the first manned space mission of the Apollo program.
21 seconds and counting, we have completed our power transfer. The Saturn 1B launch vehicle, which now weighs 1.3 million pounds, is ready to go. Coming up on the 10-second mark. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. We have ignition. Commit liftoff. We have liftoff.
Isley completed 11 days on Apollo 7, orbiting Earth 163 times. For the Apollo 7 missions, Isley performed simulated transposition and docking maneuvers with the upper stage of their Saturn IB launch vehicle and acted as navigator, taking star sightings and aligning the spacecraft's guidance and navigation platform. Another 33rd degree Master Mason was James Edwin Webb. Webb was an American government official who played a significant role in the American space program during the 1960s. He was appointed to the second administrator position at NASA by President John F. Kennedy. He was instrumental in developing the Apollo program, which aimed to land American astronauts on the moon. Overall, James Webb's contributions to the American space program were significant and helped to shape the course of space exploration in the United States during the 1960s and beyond. He was a Masonic University Lodge No. 409 member in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. He was also an Oxford Lodge No. 122 member in Oxford, North Carolina. Webb is memorialized in the James Webb Space Telescope, an orbiting space telescope designed to replace and see even further into space than the Hubble Space Telescope. Walter Marty Schirra Jr. is yet another astronaut to be a 33rd degree Freemason. He was a Canaveral Lodge No. 339 member at Cocoa Beach, Florida, and of the Orlando Scottish Rite Bodies. As an astronaut, Schirra was one of the original 7 chosen for Project Mercury, the United States' first effort to put human beings into space. On October 3, 1962, he flew the 6-orbit, 9-hour Mercury Atlas 8 mission in a spacecraft he nicknamed Sigma 7. At his mission in Sigma 7, Schirra became the 5th American and 9th human to travel into space. In the 2-person Gemini program, he achieved the first space rendezvous, station-keeping his Gemini 6A spacecraft within 1 foot of the sister Gemini 7 spacecraft in December 1965. In mid-1966, Schirra was assigned to command a 3-person Apollo crew with fellow Freemason Don F. Isley and R. Walter Cunningham to make the second crewed flight test of the Apollo Command Service Module with a mission profile identical to Apollo 1. When Apollo 7 was launched on October the 11th, 1968, Schirra became the first person to fly in space 3 times. James Benson Irwin was also a Freemason astronaut. He served as lunar module pilot for Apollo 15 and was the 8th person to walk on the moon. As the Apollo 15 lunar module pilot, Irwin logged 295 hours and 11 minutes in space and 18 hours and 35 minutes of the mission time on the moon's surface. During Irwin's mission to the moon, the team made one of the most important discoveries of the Apollo era, the Genesis Rock, an anorthosite rock that formed in the early stages of the solar system. It is said to be around 4 billion years old. Irwin belonged to Tejon Lodge, number 104 in Colorado Springs, Colorado. According to the ancient accepted Scottish Rite Valley of Boston website, Jim was a pious man who strongly believed in God and his family and friends. Not much can be said of him that would live up to what he has meant to Freemasonry and his country.
Well, I was very thrilled getting the news. And my wife and family were also very thrilled when I gave them the news.
When do you start your training?
Supposed to report early in May to begin the training down at Houston.
Being an astronaut is certainly a different occupation. Why did you apply for this?
Well, I think basically I have a pioneering spirit. I like to do new and novel things. Plus my background and training uniquely qualifies me for this type of task.
As I understand, you're going to be in Project Apollo. This means the moon, of course. What are the chances that you may be going to the moon?
Well, as you know, there were 19 selected in this last selection process, which brings the total number to 50. And probably a good percentage of those 50 will be also qualified at the time. They picked the crew for the first Apollo trip to the moon. That gives you some idea what my chances might be.
I like the idea of going to the moon.
That's why I volunteered for the program. I want to go.
Other astronauts may not have been as vocal about their involvement. Remember that being a Freemason comes with specific codes or laws of silence. According to the Grand Lodge of Mississippi's writings regarding what a Mason can and cannot discuss with non-Masons, they say, by the word secret, we usually mean information that is known only to a very select few people. Furthermore, it is information that is intentionally kept limited to those few people. Classified military information is of this nature. Personal medical records and financial data are also secret. In each of these cases, outsiders can obtain the information only with great difficulty, if it is at all possible. They also discuss the use of the term Masonic business practices, saying when we talk about things concerning the relationships between brothers, then we are involved in Masonic business, and these topics should not be shared with the public. While Masons have reasons to keep secrecy in the organization, this has also caused endless drama. For instance, the Anti-Masonic Party was founded in the United States in 1828 in response to public outrage over the alleged involvement of Freemasons in the disappearance and presumed murder of William Morgan, a former Mason who had threatened to expose the secrets of the organization. With a small piece of that history in mind, when researching astronauts who are also Masons, it may not always be clear who is or is not a member of the secret society. One such person is the first man to walk on the moon, Neil Armstrong. Armstrong was selected as a NASA astronaut in 1962 and made his first spaceflight in 1966 as the commander of the Gemini 8 mission. In 1969, Armstrong became the first person to set foot on the moon as part of the Apollo 11 mission. His famous words upon stepping onto the lunar surface have become one of the most iconic phrases in human history.
Very, very fine-grained as you get close to it. It's almost like a powder. Ground mass is very fine. I'm going to step off the limb. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Oh, that looks beautiful from here, Neil.
I was the alternate or backup commander for the flight around the moon, Apollo 8. Right. And as soon as they took off, I was on the job, of course. And the boss called me in a few days later and said, would you take the third flight down the road, 11. Mm-hmm. No, 8 was in the air, 9 was in the hangar yet, it hadn't started to fly, and 10 was, the lunar module had not flown. There was no way we could predict what each of those flights would do. It was going to depend on the success and the accomplishments of each flight along the build-up period. But Apollo 8 worked well, 9 worked well, 10 did far better than expected, took a lunar module actually around the moon and tried out its propulsion systems and its navigation systems and communicating with 2 spacecraft simultaneously.
all these things were accomplished in just those 4 flights. And so a month before the launch of Apollo 11, my cruise flight, we decided we were confident enough that we could try an attempt on a descent to the surface. And I should say that I thought we had a 90% chance of getting back safely to Earth on that flight, but only a 50-50 chance of making a successful landing on the first attempt. There's so many unknowns in that descending from lunar orbit down to the surface that had not been demonstrated yet by testing, and there was a big chance that we didn't understand something in there properly, and we had to abort and come back to Earth without landing.
In addition to his work as an astronaut, Armstrong was a decorated military pilot who flew over 200 combat missions during the Korean War. Following his retirement from NASA in 1971, Armstrong worked as a professor of aerospace engineering at the University of Cincinnati. He remained active in the space and aviation communities until he died in 2012. While there are many claims of Armstrong being a Mason, it is debated, and certainly very little can be confirmed. However, there are some credible points. For instance, it is documented on an official Masonic website of Canada that Armstrong's father, Stephen Armstrong, was an active Freemason from 1931 until his death in 1990. This is according to records at the Grand Lodge of Ohio. Not only was Armstrong's father a Mason, but he also had many friends who were Masons. In addition to Buzz Aldrin, Gordon Cooper was known to be a close friend of Armstrong's and is a confirmed Freemason. Besides this, another occurrence of Neil Armstrong being referred to as a Freemason occurred on August the 25th, 2012, after the death of the veteran pioneer. The Grand Lodge of Argentina of Free and Accepted Masons issued a statement signed by his Grand Master, Angel George Clavero, where he expresses his pain at the passing of brother Neil Armstrong to the Eternal East. He also mentions individual statues of Armstrong and his companion, Edwin Buzz Aldrin, at the gates of the Grand Lodge of Washington. While Armstrong's Masonic career is still cloudy, other astronauts around him undoubtedly were Freemasons. Another incredibly famous man, known to fellow Freemasons as illustrious John H. Glenn, 33rd degree, achieved fame as the third American to be launched into space and the first American to orbit the Earth, doing so in Project Mercury's Friendship 7 spacecraft in February of 1962. Glenn was an American astronaut, aviator, and politician. He was born in Cambridge, Ohio, and attended Muskingum College, where he studied chemistry and played on the football and swimming teams. In 1942, he enlisted in the US Army Air Corps and later became a pilot in the Marine Corps, flying missions in both World War II and the Korean War. After leaving the military, Glenn pursued a career as a test pilot, setting a transcontinental speed record in 1957. He was selected as one of the original 7 astronauts for NASA's Mercury program in 1959, becoming the first American to orbit the Earth on February the 20th, 1962, aboard the Friendship 7 spacecraft. A Freemason, Glenn was a member of Concord Lodge No. 688 in New Concord, Ohio. He received all his degrees in full in a Mason at Sight ceremony from the Grand Master of Ohio in 1978, 14 years after petitioning his lodge. Glenn became a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Mason in the Valley of Cincinnati in 1999.
On behalf of the Valley of Cincinnati, I am honored and proud to present this 33rd degree cap, which was worn by Senator John Glenn as a 33rd degree Mason. And so I'd like to present this to the museum and library and have it join his Masonic ring, which he wore In 1998, when he took his second mission into space on the ship Discovery and became the oldest man to orbit the Earth, which is a record he still holds today.
Thank you so much for giving this to us and putting it into our care. We're really excited about telling the story of John Glenn, his many achievements, and his involvement with Scottish Rite. We really appreciate it.
That's excellent, and we're so glad to add 2 more Masonic artifacts to our Masonic collection here at this museum.
As an adult, he was honored as part of the De Molay Legion of Honor by De Molay International, a Masonic youth organization for boys. Glenn eventually served as a prominent United States Senator and as a presidential candidate. He also came out of retirement to fly on a space shuttle in 1998 to conduct research on spaceflight and aging. He currently holds the record for being the oldest person ever to fly in space, 77 years of age at the time of the flight. Given the incredible number of Freemasons involved in the space program, it's not surprising that many Masons were closely following the progress of the space missions during the 1960s. As evidence of this, the New Age magazine published a special issue in November 1969 titled On the Moon, featuring a photo of Buzz Aldrin standing next to the American flag on the lunar surface. The issue also included an article by illustrious Kenneth Kleinknecht, 33rd degree Mason, who was then serving as manager for the Command and Service module of the Apollo program. The article, Freemasonry in the Space Age, highlights the importance of eternal values even amidst the excitement of technological triumph. In conclusion, Freemasonry played a significant role in the Apollo program and the broader space race. Many of the key figures involved, including astronauts, engineers, and managers, were members of the Masonic Brotherhood. While the precise nature of the relationship between Freemasonry and the space program is not fully understood, it is clear that there was a strong affinity between the two. The fact that such a prominent secret society was so entwined with one of the most significant scientific and technological achievements in human history is undoubtedly intriguing and raises questions about the role of secret societies in shaping the course of human progress. While we may never fully understand the extent of Freemasonry's influence on the space program, it is clear that its legacy continues to be felt to this day.
We have ignition. Commit liftoff. We have liftoff.
Well, look back towards the period of time when our crew, it's Wally Schraub, Don Isley, and myself. When we got assigned to a crew, it was going to be the second Apollo mission. And the first Apollo mission was Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee. We had the same kind of spacecraft.
I'm taking over a mission that my buddy was not able to fly. That was a tough one. So with that, we went through a lot of trauma. Gus would be the first person to say, let's get on with it. Do good work. And that was the kind of attitude I had going into Apollo.
Apollo 7 became very important. If we had not had a success on Apollo 7, we really don't know what would have happened to the space program.
Now it is time to take longer strides. Time for a great new American enterprise. Time for this nation to take a clearly leading role in space achievement, which in many ways may hold the key to our future on Earth.
What happened with Apollo was an amazing series of events. We're trying to get to the moon before this decade is out. If you remember what Mr. Kennedy told us.
We were smart enough to realize that going into space is different than just going up to 40,000 feet or going supersonic down to those kind of things. And that's what appealed to us. I think that we wanted to be part of that
We didn't mind working 80 hours a week because we knew we were going to do something different.
Apollo 7 was in Earth orbit for 11 days. Today I would tell people about this. That was the longest, it was the most ambitious, and the most successful first test flight of any new flying machine ever. And that's still true today, 50 years later.
In its complexity and in its application, that it has never been duplicated. That happened